Hey guys, in this video I wanted to share with you basically the 10-year-old video that I created whenever we painted this room. This is actually more recent. This is 10 years after we actually did the project, and as you can see, this is the same color but different sheens for the pattern there. So we did a Moroccan print, and as you can see here, we did like a shinier sheen, which was the eggshell sheen, and then the matte sheen or flat, whatever you would prefer, as the base. And I basically painted the pattern to be a eggshell or satin sheen. You could probably do the satin sheen, but overall it stood the test of time and we absolutely love it. I love this space just because it's very personalized to us, and then we were able to buy the Etsy pattern without having to add wallpaper, so we love it, and I hope that this inspires you guys for your next project.
Hi there, I'm Seng, and I'm here to show you basically how to use a stencil that has a basically kind of opaque feel to the room. So the first thing is making sure that you have the right paint, frog tape, and the stencil. So talk about the paint first. So the first base coat of this, I decided to use a semi-gloss, and also using a Valspar package of paint crystals, and they're kind of metal. So I used a Benjamin Moore semi-gloss, 1/4 of that, along with one package of the Valspar paint crystals, and I painted that base. The second layer is a mixture of 1/4 of eggshell and 1/4 of flat, so different sheens, but they're all the same color. So both the semi-gloss, the flat, and the eggshell are all three the same color but different sheens. So the second mixture, which is going to be used with the stencil, I chose to use eggshell and flat mixed together because I didn't like flat because I have a lot of kids, and I didn't want their fingerprints to kind of go on the walls, and eggshell's a little bit more forgiving, so I figured I'd mix the two to get like an in-between sheen. Then I bought this stencil from Etsy.com, and there's like 5 different vendors that sell this kind of Moroccan print. What I would recommend is when you get it, you'll typically see a 1-inch border around there, and I would cut at least 2 of the sides just so that you can get nice and close to the edges. And also use frog tape instead of painter tape. I know frog tape is more expensive, but it's worth its money in gold. So with that said, tip number 1 is buy a high density foam roller, and you're going to use this for the second part of the painting, which is going to be used with the stencil. When you roll it, get just a little bit on your brush, and what you'll have to do is brush it off so that you don't have too much paint on your roller, because if you have too much paint, it's going to go and bleed through your stencil. Okay, and you're just going to go up and down all the way around. The hardest part about this look in getting it is lighting. So when you're in this room, depending on where you're at, that's when you'll see the border. So that's the effect of this room. What's hard is lining up the pattern when you're done with this section to go to the next section. So make sure you have good light, or like a secondary light where you can shine to make sure that you have, you can see where you're going to be putting it. My husband at first was very skeptical about this, but it's turning out pretty okay. So this is a high density foam brush that you'll need to get. Also, it's a 6-inch foam brush. You also need paper towels for blotting, and also your paint. What we've done to this wall was we put a coat, actually 3 coats of semi-gloss paint with the Valspar glitter, and I'll show you that on the blog. And then I purchased this stencil from Etsy for about $35, and I'm stenciling the wall with it, all for our wall of the powder room. And you'll probably need, for a small powder room like this, about a gallon for each type of paint. So what I did was I purchased 1 gallon of semi-gloss paint, and then I also needed a quart of flat paint and a quart of eggshell paint. So the first layer, base layer, is semi-gloss. my top stencil layer to not be too flat because I have kids and they get their fingerprints over the wall. I purchased both flat and eggshell and mixed them together. So this first layer is a semi-gloss coat, and I purchased the Valspar paint chips that kind of have that gold tone to it. It's like $7.50 each. So I purchased 3 quarts of the semi-gloss, and for each of the 3 quarts I put 1 packet of the paint chips. So it has this like glittery feel if you like that girly look. For the stencil, what I used was the eggshell and the flat paint. And I purchased this stencil from Etsy.com, and there are a ton of vendors for these stencils. So I'm at the point where I'm stenciling and it's looking pretty cool, and my husband was pretty skeptical about this first, but it's actually kind of neat. So what you need is a 6-inch foam brush, and you also need, it's a high density foam brush. So that's really important because you don't want to get a lot of paint on it. And then you also need paper towels and a paint tray. And what you do is you first brush the paint onto the brush using the paint tray, and then you have to blot it off with this paper towel, and then you put it on the wall. Also, a big tip is to use baby wipes if you mess anything up. So if you got babies and baby wipes, that would help. So I'm going to show you what I do. So I'm brushing the paint on, and then you see all that paint, you don't want that because it's going to bleed through. So what I have done is on the toilet, I'm going to rub off the excess. So I've gone ahead and wiped off the excess, and now I'm just going to paint. And big tip is just paint one way first. And what I use is a blue painter's tape. And if you're doing my style, what's important is that you have a lot of light in this room. We took the lights off, obviously, but it was hard because with this technique, you're just trying to get that little kind of iridescent kind of look. So you want to make sure that you have a lot of light so you can see where you stopped with the last stencil. And so all I'm doing is I'm rubbing it, or I'm rolling it, and I'm going to roll it this way. And then after I'm done, you can sort of see where I painted. Now, if you have spray adhesive, I recommend you use that. So if you have spray adhesive, this is easy to hack. It wasn't working for me. I had an extra, and it's pretty old, but it didn't work. I would spray this on, wait about 5 minutes, and then you don't have to use the painter's tape. What I would recommend is using this painter's tape here. It's the frog tape, and it's actually better than the blue tape when it comes to sticking and also painting. So if you're looking for a good painter's tape, that's a really good one. It's worth its weight in gold because it's more expensive. So I just have it taped, just like that. And I'll go ahead and reposition it. Second tip is use frog tape instead of painter's tape to paint your stencil. Even better than that is if you have this easy tap repositional adhesive, so you can spray the back. I have used the stencil about 8 times now around the little bathroom here, and I haven't washed it, so I know that's bad, but it looks fine so far. I've messed up a couple times just because I had to, when I overlapped them wrong, so I'm going to go and repaint, and then repaint with this. So just some tips. Again, I'm using a high density foam brush. That's important because what you have to make sure with the second layer is that when you do it, I'm using a styrofoam plate, putting the paint on there, and then I'm blotting it with paper towels. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that 3 times, and I'm just going to basically brush 3 coats of it. The hardest part about this look is that the light in here, we just had the lights off. Like, he actually took them off of the wall because again, this look is more of like if you're at an angle, you can see the patterns. It was really hard to see the patterns at certain angles, and so that's going to be the hardest and longest part, is trying to figure out how to line them up appropriately. And so I'm just going to go through and do this, and I'm trying to make sure that I go one way as much as I possibly can, just so that when I take the stencil off, the shape is nice and sharp. So, hopefully once I finish this, it will look good. I have 4 areas I have to repaint, like small, like 1-foot sections that I have to repaint with the semi-gloss. Okay? With this, I've messed up about 4 times, but that's okay, because you can always repaint. That's what's great about paint, is that it's forgiving. So on the left, I've messed up. On the right, it's great. So I'm going to repaint this area over here, but as you can see, it's actually turning out pretty cool. My husband did not want to do this at first, and actually he painted this room all blue, and so I repainted it. And then when he saw the stencils, I think he was pretty happy that it looked better than what he had envisioned. If you decide to do this, make sure that you kind of practice on cardboard, and I'm going to tell you this right now. It says to practice on cardboard on the stencils, the directions that the stencil books gave me, but it looks terrible on cardboard, and it will actually look better on your walls. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and paint, and the tip here is that when you put, so you're going to brush the solid or the semi-gloss first, and this is the second part of it. So what I did was I used a high density roller just for this part. Again, paint the first base coat with the regular method of like using the roller, obviously. And the second is you have to use a 6-inch high density foam roller. And then what you do is you dip in your paint, but then blot it on a napkin. And that's the biggest piece, is because you don't want too much paint on your brush, or else it's going to bleed through the stencil. So I have just a roller here, and every time I move, I use a new roller, or I use a new paper towel. But I do 3 coats with this stencil, just because I have a lighter color. You may be able to get away with 2 if you have a darker color. So go ahead and do this. And this is my second coat. And so I'm going just up and down, and then I'm going to go side to side. My other tip is making sure that you have a good starting place that's kind of even. And again, I would start from the top and then work my way down with the stencil. The other tip is making sure that before you use the stencil, you cut the stencil so that it's closest to the edge of the pattern as possible. It comes with about 1 inch typically of extra room. I do not like that. I know it's supposed to help you with like taping it and all that good stuff, but I found it really hard to maneuver around like the edges. So make sure that you cut the stencil.
I hope you guys liked that tutorial. I know it's been 10 years in the making, but this is what it looks like these days. Again, 10 years later, which is kind of exciting that I still love the pattern to this day. So if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to leave a comment below. I'll go ahead and leave the links to at least stencils that are very similar in nature. Again, this is Moroccan print, and again, the sheen that we use for the stencil is a little bit shinier than what it was on the base, which is a flat paint. So there you have it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Love to talk to you guys. Thanks. Bye.